The top 7 times Israel has intentionally murdered or tried to murder Americans. Let's see how many of these you already knew, because you ain't getting this in the history books, kids. We'll begin with the most recent. On April 1st, 2024, Israel deliberately murdered 7 World Central Kitchen aid workers, including an American-Canadian dual citizen. You might recall that Israel bombed all 3 cars in the convoy in order to ensure they had killed everyone. World Central Kitchen had Israel's permission to be there, and they'd gotten permission to travel on that route, and they had giant World Central Kitchen logos on top of each car, and they get some of their funding from the U.S. government. None of that was enough for Israel to lay off. However, in Israel's defense, no, I got nothing. I thought I was going to pull something out of my ass. There's nothing there. Number 2, the Leavon Affair. Let's jump back to 1954 when Israel tried to partake in some nice old terrorism. Israeli intelligence operatives planted bombs in U.S., British, and Egyptian civilian areas in Cairo, ranging from shopping malls and movie theaters to diplomatic targets. Too bad for Israel, their plan was foiled before they could take the lives of innocent people. Drats. It became known as the Leavon Affair, but don't worry, Israel's goal wasn't just to harm innocent people for no reason. They hoped to also frame innocent people for doing it. So that's better. They hoped the attacks would get pinned on communist and Muslim groups, which would force the US and UK into backing Israel's military action. Blame it on the commies. That recipe it never gets old. Tastes just as delicious today as it did 100 years ago. Number 3, Shireen Abu Akla. To Palestinians, journalist Shireen Abu Akla was quite well known. She was a veteran Al Jazeera journalist who had covered the terrible treatment of Palestinians for a quarter of a century. On May 11, 2022, an Israeli soldier assassinated her in the Jenin refugee camp. Well, my God, an American journalist assassinated by Israel. I'm sure the soldiers who did that were arrested and prosecuted. I'm sure the U.S. raised hell. I'm sure it caused a frigid pause in U.S.-Israel relations. No? Nothing? Nothing at all. Gary?
What?
Nothing?
I didn't do it.
It's pretty screwed up.
I know.
Good. Glad to hear you apologize.
I didn't apologize.
Number 4, the USS Liberty. In June 1967, Israel was at war with Egypt, Jordan, and Syria. It became known as the Six-Day War. But the part that's often left out of the story was that Israel was apparently also at war with the United States. Just one problem. No one told the United States. The USS Liberty was attacked by the Israeli military, even though they knew it was an American vessel at the time. I assume they could smell the fried chicken and grits for miles around. The incident led to the killing of 34 U.S. sailors and the injury of 173 others. Miraculously, the U.S. flagged ship did not sink, despite Israel having repeatedly assaulted it with torpedoes and even napalm. So why would Israel attack their ally in the middle of a war with 3 other countries? Well, it's pretty obvious now that Israel hoped the U.S. would think the attack came from an Arab nation and would then join the 1967 war on Israel's side. The tactic is called a false flag. I've always thought it should be called a false mustache. I mean, you got to assume who's ever pulling this off probably wearing a fake stash, right? Why would you not? Maybe even those eyebrows that come off the glasses, the big bushy ones. Spycraft 101. False flags are not a new thing, but rarely does a country blow up their ally's ship and not think there might be a little blowback. But nope, the U.S. government just said, "Why, you naughty rascals, no more blowing up our ships and murdering all our men, okay?" Oh, I can't stay mad at you, you scamp. Number 5, Ambassador John Gunther Dean. In 1980, Israel very nearly succeeded at murdering the U.S. ambassador to Lebanon when they attacked his motorcade with rifles and light anti-tank rounds. Are any anti-tank rounds really light? Sounds pretty heavy. Over the years, Ambassador Dean has repeatedly argued that Israel was behind the August 1980 attempt on his life, and he found that the shells fired at him had been shipped from the U.S. to Israel. So he basically found a smoking gun. Oh my God, that's where that expression comes from. Smoking gun. I thought it had something to do with cigarettes and smoke. I didn't really know. It was speculated that the reason behind the attack was to replace the American ambassador due to his willingness to speak to the Palestine Liberation Organization, the PLO. And if that was the goal, Israel succeeded because the U.S. government quickly replaced Dean and swept the whole matter under the carpet. Then they rolled up the carpet, duct taped it, tied cinder blocks to its ankles, and dropped it in a deep lake. Number 6, Rachel Corrie. On March 16th, 2003, a 23-year-old American peace activist named Rachel Corrie was deliberately crushed to death by an Israeli soldier driving a militarized bulldozer in the Rafah area of the Gaza Strip. She was attempting to block the bulldozer, which was there to destroy Palestinian homes. And the U.S. would like you to know that they expect accountability for the people who did that as soon as Israel completes the investigation into it. Any day now. Any day. Only been 22 years. But there is a bit of a backlog since Israel commits dozens of war crimes every single day. There's a lot of paperwork right there. Let's go easy on them, okay? They're working very hard. And finally, number 7, the Mavi Marmara. In 2010, a humanitarian aid convoy set out to break the siege of Gaza and bring the people humanitarian aid. While the ship was in international waters, IDF soldiers dropped from a helicopter, violently storming the ship on May 31st. The Israeli soldiers gunned down 10 of the activists on board. One of those who was murdered was an American citizen. And the U.S. expects accountability for the people who did that as soon as Israel completes the investigation into it. Any day now. Been 15 years.